Man, this Red Dead Redemption 2 video game is not half bad, man. These horses have a lot of detail. I wonder how Rockstar is able to make their games feel so real. Over the last couple of weeks, I've been playing a lot of Forza Horizon 4, a game that I absolutely love for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it's been quenching my thirst for an open world game during this lead up to Red Dead Redemption 2. Secondly, Britain in Forza is just a world that I love being in. It's open, vibrant, beautiful, and I kind of just enjoy messing around in this open world. Open world games are nothing new. You can find their origins in games like the original Legend of Zelda, and since Rockstar released Grand Theft Auto 3 in 2001, developers saw the opportunity that these types of games presented. Creating a world that is vast, interesting, and engaging provides a critical form of experience, and since GTA 3, we've seen the ripples and variations of open worlds and what they bring to the table. Forza Horizon 4 provides a world that I absolutely adore being in. The fast speed, vibrant environment, and blasting music all contribute toward this. However, I come to Forza Horizon for a different reason than I come to a game like Assassin's Creed Odyssey or The Witcher 3, for example. Even with this being the case, that doesn't mean we can't compare and contrast these different experiences to see if there's any commonality in what makes an open world great. With the release of Red Dead Redemption 2, it's only natural that we take things back to Grand Theft Auto 5, one of the greatest open world games ever made. It would be safe to assume that a lot of the design philosophies that Rockstar used to make GTA 5 great are being fed directly into Red Dead. Philosophies such as a huge world, unnecessary levels of detail, NPCs that you can mess around with, unrestricted violence, side activities that seem meaningless like going to the cinema, and an overall level of polish that you can only expect from a studio with a budget of Rockstar. These are factors that add up to an amazing game, and it's why we all expect Rockstar's games to be great. That said, I think there's more that goes into why Rockstar's worlds are particularly special, especially Red Dead Redemption 2's. In order to explain, I want to take a look at SpiderMan for the PlayStation 4. This game is incredible. SpiderMan is a fast-paced, open-world game where you swing around New York, fight bad guys, swing around New York some more, and fight some more bad guys. There's not really much to discover. There's no shopkeepers and merchants, not many of the buildings are available to enter, and there are side quests, but they aren't really story-heavy or deep, and the world isn't humongous in scale. You can swing around the city in minutes. But I would still describe this open world as fantastic. That's because what this world is built for is being more of a scavenger hunt tailored toward giving the player opportunities to engage in combat and swing around the city. Finding backpacks and taking landmark photos, for example, aren't inherently fun, but it's the act of swinging and navigating our way to these backpacks that we enjoy. There's more on this in Alex Van Aken's video on this channel about Insomniac's world design. Spider-Man's New York is designed to keep you moving in a kinetic fashion. It's a world filled with tasks, and you go around and do those tasks until you've completed them all. Finish the main story, complete 5 crimes for each faction in each area of the map, complete the science missions, complete the challenge missions, complete the Black Cat missions, etc, etc. This is why the platinum percentage in Spider-Man is through the roof. It's because it's a game designed as a checklist. An extremely fun checklist, but this is where it contrasts with a game like Red Dead Redemption 2. Red Dead Redemption 2 isn't designed as a scavenger hunt nor checklist, at least not in the same way. That is to say that the focus of the world design is less around giving you opportunities to swing and fight, and more so focused on, well, I think that's the big question here in talking about how Rockstar crafts an open world. What does Rockstar want you to feel? If it's not the euphoria of the active movement like you get from Forza or Spider-Man, maybe we should start looking at a different type of open world game. In every one of my videos, I'm bound to bring up The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, and I'd be shocked if you thought different in a video centered around open world game design. Breath of the Wild is one of the greatest open world games ever made, and for the sake of this video, I'll narrow it down to 3 reasons why. 1, the active exploration and discovery is enhanced because behind every nook and cranny, there is something to find. 2, the world is systemic in a way that lends itself to constant puzzle solving and experimentation. Weather, climbing, and physics systems create a highly interactive world. 3, the world unveils itself slowly. Breath of the Wild forces the player to slowly peel back the layers of Hyrule to discover new territories and points of interest. The game never does the Assassin's Creed or Far Cry thing where it populates your map with icons. Instead, you populate your own map with what you deem noteworthy. The game doesn't constantly give you direction of where to go. Instead, you pick which way you want to go. You explore, and as you go, you may happen upon a dragon or a rock monster. You may be intrigued by a floating structure in the sky or a giant lizard crawling around Death Mountain. Breath of the Wild came out in early 2017, and its approach in redefining open world structure was refreshing, and Red Dead 2 comes out at a time where that influence can be realistically felt. As we've reached the release of Red Dead Redemption 2, impressions, reviews, and discussions have pointed toward the elements of exploration and discovery. Some of my favorite ones detail very human encounters with NPCs minding their own business, fulfilling their own roles in the world.
3 lawmen come across the top of a hill as I'm riding up it. The sun's behind them, they're silhouetted. They all get their guns out because we had this huge bounty because I'd just been fucking around the whole time. The first thing that occurred to me was, that guy's about to shoot me, I'm not going to target him. I shot his horse, and not to kill it, just to shoot it.
What?
And it just bucks, and the guy just falls off the back of it. And you're like, and that's just because the game had introduced so many things where you're like, yeah, it'll probably work. That was like, I bet that does work. Yeah, and the guy just tumbles off his horse, and then I can concentrate on the other 2 guys. And you're like, that's cool. Fucking amazing. Like
if you rest, for example, or if you take a tonic or something, you can increase them. So there's that to take into account. Like if you get cold, you'll move differently, you'll move slower. There's a lot to take on board. And
I saw a horse with a lantern in a distant field. So I went over to the field, and I noticed that there's this guy crouching through the grass with a gun in his hand. I used the context menu to hit greet, and I'm like, hey, what you doing there? And he responds and basically says, go away, leave me alone. So I just decided to leave. But when I was about 40 yards away, I hear this gunshot go off, not towards me, just away in the mesa. And then the guy shout, he went, woohoo, did you see that shot? So that interaction was interesting, so I walked over to him and did the context menu to say something to him, like positive, and Arthur said, wow, you're a really good shot. And then the guy responds something along the lines of, oh yeah, I just needed to get my dinner. But in the end, it was just like a weird, interesting interaction that I had.
One thing I do want to note, though, is that if you are rude to someone and you kill them or whatever, NPCs have relationships. If you kill someone and they have a cousin somewhere who can feasibly figure out that you killed them, they will come after you, or some of them will. Say it's an aggressive family and someone in town saw you do it and they also live in town, they might come and try to fight you because you killed their cousin. That is a detail that I find insane.
In Red Dead Redemption 2, when your character, Arthur Morgan, gets dirty because he fell off his horse into the mud, going to the bar right after means characters will treat you differently. Understandably, they will treat you like someone covered in dirt and mud. You can clean off your weapons because after extended use, they can deteriorate. If you want a particular haircut, you have to have enough hair to get it, and your hair grows in game time. Details like these lend themselves to a game that puts a massive focus on subtleties, mundanities, and most of all, reactivity. Details aren't just details in Red Dead Redemption 2, they have consequences, and these details exist in a reactive world, much like Breath of the Wild. The difference is, with Red Dead Redemption 2, it seems that those systems aren't as grand, consistent, and all-encompassing as Zelda's weather and physics systems. In the case of Red Dead, Rockstar has implemented seemingly countless smaller, more intimate systems that play out subtly. These subtle systems, these mundanities, lend themselves toward a believable living world. I like when real-life conversations spawn from something that happened in-game because the systems allowed for something cool to happen. Red Dead Redemption 2 does this, The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild did this, And I can think of one game too in recent memory that did this as well. Metal Gear Solid 5 is sort of my last example of an open world that mirrors some of what Red Dead Redemption 2 is doing, especially in regards to reactivity. Something I absolutely adored as I played Metal Gear Solid 5 was the fact that it felt as if when I pushed at the world, it returned the favor. For example, my beginning missions in Metal Gear Solid 5 were spent going out in the nighttime so I could maintain a stealthy approach. I would pray for rain or a sandstorm to roll by because the rain would mask my footsteps from being audible and a sandstorm would make it harder for enemies to see me from afar. I would use my tranquilizer pistol and pick off guards one headshot at a time. The crazy thing is, soon enough, the game adapted. Guards caught on to my strategies and so they began wearing night goggles to gain better visibility. They understood that I was constantly getting headshots and so they started wearing helmets. As I changed my strategies, so did they. Not only does Metal Gear Solid 5 create opportunities for you to play around with its systems, it participates itself. And this interactivity provided war stories that I would take to my friends and we discuss our approaches and how they differed. The only way I can truly boil this down is with the phrase, world designed for conversation. My favorite water cooler conversations around the time of MGS5's release were all about moments like calling a supply drop and it coming down and knocking out your horse, and similar random happenings that were fueled by a world being more of a systems-driven toy box. It was a playground. Metal Gear Solid 5 made the little things big, and I think Red Dead does this also. Both Red Dead Redemption 2 and Metal Gear Solid 5 are games where over time you'll get dirty and you'll need to clean yourself off or else people will treat you differently. These are games made with a difficult design philosophy in mind, turning something as mundane as taking a shower into a game mechanic that will dynamically affect how you exist in the world speaks to the different direction that worlds are going. They are moving in a special direction that is less about ticking checkboxes in a world designed as a hub or a scavenger hunt, and more about immersion and those surprise moments of subtle detail that affect you in large ways. In all honesty, during the lead up to Red Dead Redemption 2, I was slightly worried because it seemed like Rockstar was going overboard with focusing solely on the technology of their game as opposed to the gameplay of it. For example, there was a pretty funny story floating around about how the horse's testicles in Red Dead would shrink if it's cold outside. Details like these worried me because it made me question if Rockstar had gone too far and maybe had forgotten to make the world fun. But it is these exact mundane details that give the world life. So now that Red Dead Redemption 2 is here, I'm excited for these conversations to continue as we saddle up on our great adventure. Videos like these are possible because of people who give to OKBeast on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/OKBeast for details on perks and benefits you can receive for being a supporter. If you like this video, consider hitting the like button and subscribing so that you can keep up with OKBeast as we release a new video every week. For more Red Dead conversation, check out the OKBeast podcast that is available every Monday on OKBeast.com, Spotify, Apple, or wherever else you listen to podcasts. Thanks for watching and we'll see you later.